Welcome one and welcome all. Something that we've been pretty excited to share with you. We here at Mind for the Game really wanted to have this out for you last Monday, but our executive producer and fan favorite weekly content creator, Rhino, ran into some software issues. So I had to take over on some of the production process. That being said, some bits of audio that you're about to hear are slightly scuffed, but we hope that you enjoy it anyway. And we promise to clean up our act in the future. So please, without further ado, welcome, please enjoy the Mind for the Game, Episode 1.
Alright, hello all, and welcome to the Mind for the Game, a Dota 2 podcast with Chev, IPA, Connor, and I'm your host, Rhino. Where we dive into an array of topics surrounding Dota 2, amateur Dota, league-specific games, and replay breakdowns. So I'll let the other hosts introduce themselves, and then we can get into discussions here. Chev, do you want to go first?
Yeah, what's up, guys? Chev, captain of Coked Up Cute Kobolds, coming off of two hot 82L Season 39, Season 40 Conqueror victories, and excited to be here.
Awesome. And Rusty, do you want to go next?
Y'all are familiar with me, the undisputed, award-winning, true king of content. I am the Ass Man, assistant manager of Golf Monday, drafter for the team, and excited to be back in the Conquer division and breaking out this new podcast with some great Dota minds.
Awesome, amazing. And last but certainly not least, IPA.
Yeah, thanks, Rhino. I'm the captain of Simple Chemistry this season. I've been around 82L for around 6 seasons now. Mostly played with my friends and picked up a couple of really good people along the way. So just looking forward to talking strategy with you guys, getting inside the mind of some of the other people in the league.
Amazing. All right, so now that you know the hosts and the guests and things of that nature, we're just going to dive right into it. Standing discussions. Where we are now, we have 1 week left in the Conquer division of 82L, and as it stands, there's some surprises, some things we didn't know exactly were going to happen in the preseason, and I guess we can just dive in and break that down. Let's start with Helmets On. At the start of the season, I thought they were a lower bracket team, maybe a seventh or eighth seed. What about you guys? Did you really? Where exactly did you put Helmets On IPA in particular?
So last season, I thought Helmets On was the best team in Conqueror. And for those that don't know, they were actually allowed specifically by a captain's vote to even play last season in Conqueror, which is, I think, the only time it ever happened in 82L, because Ouch was Divine 2 above the cap at the time. But everyone felt like they were the appropriate level across the board for the league. And I agreed with that. I voted it up for them to be in the league. Now, with a cap adjustment, I think Helmets On was expected to be a middle-of-the-pack team based on performance of last season and some of the new teams that came in. Me personally, though, after playing with them for multiple seasons, I think they're a team that if you don't know specifically how to beat them, you will get beat by Helmets On. And I think they kind of throw skill out the window, and I definitely think they were an upper bracket team at the start of the season, or at least contesting for it. I say bubble upper bracket.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any differing opinions?
Yeah, no, I had them as a missing playoff team at the beginning, honestly.
Really?
I gave my reasoning. We did our preseason content at the beginning. I'll give you my reasoning. Last season, they were, like IPA said, voted to be in the league despite having a player above the ceiling. In the regular season, they were the 8th seed, I believe, almost in jeopardy of missing playoffs. Last team in the playoff field. Got hot for a few series during playoffs, made it to, I think, 3rd place. Got destroyed by Canadian Internet, which is unfortunate, but might have lost that match anyways. But with the league average going up 2 stars, a lot of players coming down from champ, a lot of very strong teams forming in the preseason, and Helmets On remaining the same. I thought with the overall skill level of the league going up and Helmets On staying the same, which was a bubble team last season, I thought they might be in danger of missing. And I was wrong. This is apparently one of the 50% of the seasons where they own. So I will take the L on that one. But I think their coordination from playing together for such a long time is really unmatched. They 5-man, I think, the most of almost any team.
Yeah, 100%.
The only other team I would say maybe plays a similar style, even going back maybe 10 seasons, like way back in the day when me and Rhino were playing in the old intermediate league, is Mochi. And they're also very similar in the sense where they have a core of players who have stuck together for numerous seasons in a row now and are used to playing with each other. So I would say those are the two teams that really play that style. Mochi's obviously had a lot of success in different divisions, won this division a couple years ago, or a couple seasons ago. And Helmets On had a great performance. And obviously the momentum of last season's run has carried forth. I think people are not used to playing against that kind of style, especially if you do a lot of pubbing and whatnot. So, yeah, I think that's definitely their big strength.
I think I think the meta favors that too right now. Like that 5-manning style used to be so punished. It used to be like if you're 5-manning all the time, there's not that many camps around. There's not that many. Like if you TP to the opposite side of the map and you're stuck there for 90 seconds or however long a TP is, I think it's 90 seconds. I don't know. I buy Boots of Travel, but you're like you're sitting there. You have no camps to farm. You're next to your carry. You're yelling at your team about how like you can't get farm on the map because they're taking your farm. Now there's like 100 camps in one little area of the map. So it's like when everyone TPs to Ouchkabibbles to protect him from a gank, they can just like kind of hit the camps around, walk back to their lanes. Like it's not punished as much. And kills are worth so much that like most teams just get punished by overextending. I think that favors Helmets On a lot this season, last season. Because, I mean, even playing against them, like, I tried really hard to punish their 5-man style, but they just are ready for it. They're ready to TP, and they don't care. They'll just TP 5 heroes everywhere. So I think the meta has a lot to do with that, too.
Yeah, no, exactly that. I think the meta really favored Helmets On this patch and last patch. High ground meta even more so. And like, when I faced Helmets On, at least, I told my guys, like, all right, pretty sure we're going to come out of lanes ahead. As long as we don't throw in the mid game, we have vision, and we really hone in on that second Roche, that third Roche, this team will just abuse you across the map, across the board. And they're really fine with nobody else getting farmed out Skibbles. They will put the game in his hands. And I think having a core like that, having a carry like that is insane. And the development of Dr. Chang's team. As an offlaner, I'm looking at other offlaners, and I like to admire and see what they're doing. But this guy's been a stud this season, an absolute stud across the board. Probably one of the most consistent players. And Helmets On, like you guys are all saying, was already a great team, right? So adding on that consistency of Dr. Chain's team as well as that hero pool has made this team look pretty much unstoppable. So do you guys have any...
You're talking about the guy who echo slammed the ground when his blink dagger was off cooldown. You know that, right?
Hey, I've RP'd the ground. Listen, it happens. It happens. You know what I mean? It happens, but I do think this guy, like, I think IPA may even agree here. He's been a consistent stud throughout the season.
I think Chang Xin is one of those players who makes more plays that win his team games than makes plays that lose his team games. And you kind of see that when you need some, like, Ouch is hella consistent. Like, we're being real. He's a really consistent carry. And I think having like a playmaker like that to go with it, it's like fantasy football, right? You got like CeeDee Lamb is going to get you like 10 catches every game, but you need like a Deshaun Jackson-esque dude who's going to blow up every once in a while.
Sure. Yeah. I think exactly that.
Ouchkabibbles, every single season, I look at stats. I haven't looked this season, but every single season I played with him, it's top KDA, Ouchkabibbles. Top kills, Ouchkabibbles. Every single game, it's all Ouch.
Yeah, they really and I can't think of another team that really functions like that. Potentially, Cuck may function like that, but definitely not Simple Chemistry. Definitely not Golf Monday. Like no one prioritizes their carry that heavily in the league. So you're definitely playing against a different play style when you play them. Like I would say, actually that's a great question. If you guys, since you guys are the captains of your team, do you guys want to go down and say, well, what do you guys think your play style is? What are your strengths? Who do you guys play around? Who do you look for in a close game? And we can start off with Rusty.
I think one thing we've struggled with thus far, hence why we're kind of middling, would be haven't honed in on something specific that works well for us. I will note, normally we are playing a pretty 4 protect 1 strategy, I would say, where Bernie will typically farm for the first 25 minutes or so, with the idea that we're going to hit a strong timing around 30 minutes and then hopefully bulldoze the game. I think a lot of our games have gone that way, with the exception, like, I don't think we've had very many long, drawn out, late game type games. So normally it's like we're either hitting that timing or we have messed up and our opponent is doing the opposite. So I would say we play more of a 4 protect 1. And so I think our priority, and the thing that's worked well when we found the right formula, is playing around edge to Ember, Bob, my beautiful boy, in the off lane, and having a mid that we can group up around, either a mid who's mobile who can make plays for us, or a mid who's tanky that we can sort of gather up around, take towers to create some breathing room for our friend Bernard. So I would say that's generally what we're looking for in terms of the formula.
Okay. And I think IPA, you probably have a really interesting perspective on this question. So I'll let you just dive into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think my answer to what is our style is that our style is dynamic from game to game, because we're potentially putting people on different positions each game. And so in my mind, this particular team, when we started the season, I looked at who are my players that I think will create win conditions for me, right? And on this team, that's Core and Hexy. And so the way that I draft is I draft in a way that supports whatever the win condition is that those two players are going to provide in the game. And a lot of times that means I pick Hexy's hero last, because I'm gonna be honest with you, like I think Hexy catches maybe a little bit too much flack sometimes, but as a Dota player, I think a lot of people understand he's very skilled. And the thing that people don't know that haven't played with him is his game knowledge is actually super deep. And I can always ask him, like, what do you think about this matchup? And he's got an answer ready. So for me, it's who are my win condition players and how do I draft to make sure that that win condition is in a good position when we're done with the draft.
Okay. Yeah, you said something really important there. And I don't think every mid or every captain has the pleasure of having a mid that understands matchups, right? Like, Chev, you being a mid player, you understand the value of knowledge in the mid lane, not only just skill. And I would say, not to call him out here, I have played with Blunted, and that man can press buttons beautifully. He is a god amongst the keys of amateur Dota, but that knowledge aspect that I have, 200 plus comp games aspect, I know what I'm going into. Do you want to tell us about that, Chev? How mid players develop throughout the competitive years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just exposure and practice, right? It's just like, I've played this matchup before. This is what went well for me. This is what didn't. If you are laning versus an OD, and you're not used to laning against OD, you're gonna get punished and like pressured by this astral spam. But if you know how to punish OD, if you're playing against like, I don't know, if I'm playing Ember and I know how to abuse the cooldown on astral imprisonment because I play both heroes, then I know like how the matchup is supposed to go. And something I do, not everyone does this, but like I take a lot of random advice from things that pros have said like on their Twitch streams or whatever. So like something that Quinn does is he'll create like a percentage in his head on how strong he is compared to his opponent, and then play the lane accordingly. So it's like if I'm 30%, like I'm Ember versus OD, I'm about 30%. so I'm going to play 30% aggressively. Versus if I'm the opposite, I'm going to play 70% aggressively, right? So it's like, and honestly, the biggest part is just like resource management and cooldowns. And you know those things from, like, if you're a really nerdy mid laner, you just know those from doing it 100 times. If you're like a pub spamming enthusiast like me, you just have done it so many times, especially the popular matchups in the meta. So like, yeah.
Okay.
I love hearing this answer from Chev though, because it's like insight too. I'm pretty sure Chev is
Oh.
just like the first iteration of Dota AI.
That's funny. I heard recently that somebody compared Dota to AI in general. Just like Dota is really just machine learning, but with a lot of humans all at once, doing it really slowly, because we're all just like adapting to the way that these like meta things happen, like pretty improperly. So yeah, I think Dota is just like one big machine learning like complex for sure.
That's so. Now that you give me that answer, I want to ask. We have two captains, and sorry and Rusty can give his take as well. You guys faced each other last week. You guys had to draft against each other. You guys had to prepare for each other. And I guess I'll let IPA sort of dive into what it was like preparing for Cuck. So, and I'll paint the picture here as well. In content, SC was seen as sort of a team that needed to prove themselves. They were sort of a middle of the pack. They're now sitting third seed, extremely strong in a very strong position ahead of playoffs. So going into last week, how did you prepare the boys? What were you looking at when you had to face Cuck IPA?
So honestly, real life sometimes gets in the way of draft prep for me, and there's like a variable amount of time I can spend on individual teams. And I kind of recognize like this week is if we won a chance at uppers, we kind of had the 2-0 Cuck, because I think if we ended up with like 7, or if we were still sitting at 6, like we're in the danger zone, right? So I put in more effort than I have probably the rest of the season in prepping. And I built basically like a sports-esque draft board. So the same way that NFL or NBA teams build their draft board. So I did that for our picks, and then each player built what I read as the draft board for their players in their team. And then I banned according to the board. So I banned whatever best hero was available in the first phase, picked whatever best hero was available in the first phase for us, and then went accordingly. Because after first phase bans, I think you need to be a little bit more dynamic in terms of reading what they're picking and what you're planning to do in that game.
That is really cool. That's a really cool draft style. I haven't heard that before.
It's really nice too, because I can just share the board with the team and be like, "Yo, give me input." And Core was like, "Hey, Teju plays Wind Ranger," because I didn't have it on his board, so I just like added it in as something for us to consider.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like typically when I'm preparing to go up against somebody, I'm thinking like, what heroes are we mutually both going to want to pick? If they're first pick, perhaps I put some thought into banning that if it's a strong like meta hero. If it's going to be contested between both of us, what heroes are we going to want to play that might not be on the table? For example, against us a lot, I think a lot of people have not given us a chance to play Axe because it's been one of the better offlaners of the patch, and I don't think they're as confident that their offlaner can play it as well as ours, so it's often just banned. So I'm not usually preparing like to have Axe available, right? And just sort of, okay, this is going to be one of their bans. So sort of thinking ahead, what do we want to play that they don't want to play, and then vice versa. What heroes might be in their repertoire that need to prepare for or ban if we are not going to have the option to pick them up. So I feel like we do something similar, like that big board concept you have. I feel that's often something sort of in my mind too. It's like, especially on like 8, 9, 13 pick, like early picks, what's just the best hero available, period? Like, snatch that up. Who on our team does it fit for what we're trying to accomplish, and then sort of build the draft around that? I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would agree. That's it's interesting to hear you guys talk about your drafting styles after facing each other. And there was a second question there as well, IPA or Chev. Who did you guys feel you had to sort of shut down in order to win that game? Right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, for those who don't know, like the really interesting part about the people that are on this podcast is I think every single team streams their perspective, including draft discussion. Uh, all of these teams, except for I don't know Rhino. I don't know if you guys do.
Yeah, Sun does
Um,
usually. I
okay,
think.
and so I think like it's one of my favorite things to do is to watch the other team's perspective after we played them because I find it so fascinating what their read was in the draft as I'm drafting. Like I fucking love that shit. And listening to like Chev's comms versus our comms is like two completely different like types of conversation, and it's so fascinating to me, like hearing those differences. And so the player I had to shut down on Chev's team was Lorenzo because I felt like he had the shallowest pool and relied the most on comfort. And so two of the first phase bans are on Weaver and Clock because I felt like those were the two heroes that put Lorenzo into a different tier than any of the other heroes he's playing.
That's
I
fair.
really like it.
I think you're right, honestly, in doing that. I think, yeah. For us, I mean, whatever we did obviously didn't work, but I think everyone on my team agreed that it wasn't a draft issue. I mean, I think if you look at the drafts, you can even see it's not a draft issue. Like, our draft is solid. I think most people looking at it that I've spoken with have said it was not a draft issue.
I thought it was pretty 50-50, maybe 60-40 for simple chemistry, but like nothing game ruining that I
My
saw.
only one is you ruined the game by picking Void Spirit 1 into Night Stalker 3.
Oh yeah,
That's my
no,
opinion.
I did say they shouldn't do that. I
No,
did
okay,
say
like-
they shouldn't do that.
The Void Spirit 1 thing was me. Teju has been destroying his pubs with that hero, like owning. Like his KDA over like 6 games, he has like 100% win rate, like a 30 KDA. Like the dude's a Void Spirit fucking beast. I saw Night Stalker Disruptor, and I said, "Do you want to still play Void Spirit into these heroes? Like I'm not saving that pick if you still want to play the hero." And it was just one of those things where it was like we lost game 1. I wanted to give my player comfort. I wanted to give him something that he wants to play. And to be entirely honest, I was like, even if we lose this game, like I just want to go out with you getting the hero you want to play. So that wasn't really a like technical drafting thing from me where I thought the hero was good for the game. It was my player wants to play this. We just lost. Let's pick this hero for you. So that draft a little harder, but game 1 at least I think like we didn't lose on draft. We lost on I think our draft was definitely harder to execute, but I think we lost on playstyle instead. But drafting versus simple chemistry, to answer your original question, Rhino, I think it's really hard. I think like they're one of the hardest teams to draft around, not because they switch roles, but because they have players that perform exceptionally well on many, many, many heroes. And you can't ban out like going against Fatality. You can't. I'll be plain and simple. I don't think he's like the impact player on that team, but you don't have the luxury of banning out his Centaur, banning out his Venge, banning out his Razor. These heroes that like you're scouting and you see that he plays those heroes multiple times and he gets the heroes he wants because the rest of his team is so hard to draft against. Like playing against Core, there's like 5 heroes that come to mind instantly that he's going to play one of them and he's going to have an insane impact on one of those heroes. Enchantress, Oracle, Abaddon, Phoenix, Rubik, Io, Elder Titan. Like these heroes are just like so impactful on that team, and you don't have the choice to ban them, so you have to let through what you think you can play against, which is what we tried to do. And we got Shadow Fiend on 9 pick or 8 pick, I don't remember, and yeah, I made that mistake. So it's hard. They're a hard team to draft against. Yeah.
So if I may, I actually want to take the opposite perspective. I thought that although simple chemistry is, I thought probably at the time we played them, probably second sharpest team that we played. I think that the coked up kobolds were really amped up for our series, so they definitely felt like the strongest to play at the time. But I'll give simple chemistry definitely their flowers when we played them in the official. Very strong team. But to me, when I was approaching strategy versus them, I felt that it was actually more straightforward to draft against simple chemistry because I'm purely focused. I'm not worried like, oh, what if Cloud goes support this game and plays this hero, or what if Core plays this? I'm really just thinking purely about what heroes are going to give us issues and what heroes are we able to play into this specific matchup? It's not. I'm not focused on players' niche picks per se. It's purely like Dota. It's almost like I'm drafting against a team of random people I've never seen or played against or know anything about, right? I'm like purely focused. Okay, here are meta picks that they might go for that we don't play. Okay, get rid of those. Here are like what heroes are going to give us trouble. I don't care if it's Cloud playing it, if it's IPA playing it, like what heroes give us issues in this game, or what heroes can we play into what they're going so far. I felt like it was a bit more straightforward just because of that. To me, going up against them, I didn't try to like, you could probably try to do the mental gymnastics and sort of calculate, well, Fatality plays pause 3 this game, they might be going for this or whatever. But to me, made it a bit, I don't want to say easier, because they did smoke us in one game and had a very good draft. But like, I just thought it was a bit more straightforward to purely look at the Dota 2 heroes and not worry too much about who's potentially busting out what, you know? I don't know if that makes sense, but that was sort of my perspective.
I think that's the right perspective to have for sure.
I think the question I have for you, Rhino, because you've kind of preached that philosophy before. I think you said it in Discord and maybe even just when we've been talking at some point, is like, just ignore what the heroes they're picking and just pick the best lineup, basically. Like, do your own shit. And I guess my question to you guys is, like, is there maybe just a chance that you should just pick the best lineup for your team and make the other drafter react to you? Is that just a general strategy, not specific to my team?
I feel like we have strong laners in our side lanes, and so we have a pretty, like, I don't feel like we need to react as much to what our opponent's drafting if we can come out of our lane, right? So when I face someone like SC, hexing the mid lane is going to be a nuisance. He's going to be an issue. I already know, right? But like, we don't really play it on our mid. If you really watch us, like, Sun's going to lose his lane. He's just going to do things to come back, right? So we just make our side lanes really strong. And Fatality, he's a great player, right? But he's sort of newish to the core side of things, definitely in the off lane. So we try to, like, I see Dota like basketball almost, like mismatch. And I think mismatch is really helping lanes, right? So Mobino versus Fatality on a straight lane, if I give him a good hero and he has a good matchup, I'll take Mobino in that matchup. That's a mismatch to me, right? That's how I see it in a laning aspect, right? The reason I think it doesn't work as much anymore against this team is a lot of the patch, right? HO is getting that help as well, right? Where these guys don't really have to either come out of their lane winning or, you know, come out of their lane ahead. And even if they lose lane, they can make up for it in the mid game, right? It's like, I think we scrimmed you guys once. You picked DK safe lane and then like a save support, and I couldn't really do anything in the lane, right? The lane was a scratch. We were just farming in front of each other. Around 20 to 25 minutes, you had this massive time, and the game was over. It felt unplayable, right? And that's when I knew. I was like, okay, we're going to struggle. Like, we're going to struggle on the sole fact our mid game is nowhere as strong as our laning phase, right? So our movements in the mid game can get easily exposed by teams that have strong mid game timings. I think when you look at our Scythe series, right? So when you really deep dive into why we're losing games, like, our mid game is really bad. So SC has sort of hid that weakness, and this season it's hard to call it a weakness, right? Fatality's been owning, Hexy's owning a lane, right? So, and Core's doing his thing, right? That's 3 lanes where you have people that are playing. If Fatality plays up every game, or IPA can easily take that role as well, right? I think that the duality of that team is very scary, but I think you have to go in with your own draft plan. I preach this so much to these teams with I wouldn't say niche, but variety pools. You have to go in with your own thing, and you have to really hope that thing works. If you go in and you really look into the stats and really deep dive into why things are working for the enemy team, you're going to lose focus on yourself, right? And you're going to forget how you're supposed to win, right? So that's my philosophy on that. And I appreciate the question as well, PA. And to follow that up, do I want to see SC in the playoffs? Hell no. If my answer there, gave that inclination, no, I do not want to see SC in the playoffs if I had to choose. It's most likely going to come down to that, right? So, but yeah, I think they're very scary in a BO2, even scary probably to BO3. So, does anyone else want to expand on that?
Well, so talking about not wanting to see SC in playoffs, they're number 2 seed, tied for number 2 seed with Scythe. Big surprise,
Sure.
but Helmets On, number 1 seed is who you have to go against next week. And if you guys don't 2-0, there's a solid shot you miss playoffs. I mean, you need at least one win to get lower bracket, right? But I mean, number 1 seed, Helmets On has been owning. They won their last 4 games. They 2-0'd Mochi, which is insane. Going to playoffs. I mean, we saw Mochi, like, rigged player Han.
They have won their last 5 games, actually. I want
5
to correct the record.
Who did they win one before that?
Simple Chemistry.
Okay, well, there you go. So they won 1 Simple Chemistry. They 2-0 Mochi. They 2-0 Scythe. And now they are the thing standing between Rhino and playoffs. I mean, how are you guys feeling about going into that matchup? Have you thought about it? Have you prepped?
It's all that's on my mind, man. It's all that's on my mind, right? Like this. I can't remember. I don't think I've ever missed playoffs. Like this is all that's on my mind. This is it engulfs me almost. You know, you see some of my players like they're grinding 12 games a day. I got the whip at their backs. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to lose. And you see Sherry's on 12 games a day while Bino's playing 8. Like I don't want to lose, and I don't ever want to be in this position. I told my team that. And I think a mindset switch had to happen where like some of these guys have been on so high levels and they just assume like, all right, we're going to get to we're going to see the end game of playoffs, right? Like this is going to happen, right? So there's work that has to happen, right? There's work that has to be done, right? Like, some of my guys love to talk about, how well they play or how well they could play or things of that nature, how well they're doing in pubs or what rank they are. I tell them every day, brother, the best teams probably don't have like some of the lowest ranks, right? You look at that SC team, right? Some of the lowest ranks, bodying. Like the ranks don't matter, man. It's how well you have Dota, like your Dota comprehension, right? Your knowledge on your patch, right? We didn't have enough games in. I think that's scary when your team doesn't have enough games in Dota. You can fall off really easily. I think that's what happened with me and when me and IPA teamed up last time, right? So I didn't want that to happen this time. I didn't want that to be the fault, and I know I have to come in 2-0. So it's scary though. It's definitely not like this is not easy. This is not going to be easy, and again, I'm also excited as well. So if we prove something here, right? If we 2-0 Helmets On here, let's just say we 2-0 Helmets On here, right? After their extensive resume, we are going into whatever playoffs with a very strong, right? So, and that's what I'm encouraging my guys with, right? If we just get past this hurdle, right, we can go in looking very, very strong for playoffs, whoever we face. So, yeah, but it's definitely scary. I'm definitely contacting people for their opinions and trying to dive into their minds. I think that's so important in A2L. We have a lot of like good Dota players. We have a lot of good Dota players, and not only good Dota players, we have a lot of great Dota minds, right? And this is what sort of this podcast encapsulates is, no matter what rank you are, you have 200 plus competitive games where you're trying to just outdraft somebody straight up. Like you're going to grow, you're going to develop, you're going to learn, right? And these guys have a lot of things to say. So, yeah, man, I'm scared as fuck to be honest, but I want to be confident when I go in there, and that's gonna take games, right? So I'm getting my games in as well. But yeah, I guess we can move on to Riyadh, or do you guys want to move on, or?
I just want to say you brought up ranks. I think a lot of hand wringing happens in 82 recently because of ranks and sandbagging, whatever. Don't need to dignify like too much of that here, but I think at this current moment of Dota, rank matters like less than it ever has, in my opinion. I think a lot of people have gained a lot of MMR recently due to the combination of giant game-breaking patch where like certain things are just extremely like certain facets, right? They introduce facets to the game, they introduce innates to the game. Certain facets, certain innates are just inherently broken at the moment, and those heroes have high win rates. The combination of new patch plus Glicko that's been around for a while now, plus Smurfs being banned, plus double downs, I think a lot of people are gaining a lot of MMR like we've been seeing in 82L, especially when you're practicing Dota with the intention of like playing on a amateur, competitive team. Like you're practicing stuff you might play in the tournament, right? You're playing meta heroes in your pubs a lot of the time. And there are some people who have a more casual approach who might play more unranked or don't hit the grind quite as hard. But at the same time, the people who really are, especially amateur Dota people, we're seeing that they're going up a lot in rank. And I just think when MMR is kind of free at the moment, like
Would you say inflated?
I don't know if that's quite the right word for it. Maybe with double downs it is inflated. But I actually think, like, I've noticed as someone who parties queues a lot, game quality of party queue games is a lot better recently. And I think banning Smurfs, they have banned a lot of Smurfs. So I do think that plays a role in it. And I think it is easier to gain MMR in party queue as well.
I feel the
So,
opposite, but I might be because I'm a core player. You're a sport
Maybe.
player.
I feel the exact
So you're playing in
opposite.
the 6,000 behavior score realm, Chev.
oh
I
yeah,
have 12k behavior
those
score. It's
shadow pool is tough.
I have 12k behavior score, 10k comms. Get it straight. Also,
So
I think it's also there's a big difference between gaining MMR and being good at the game, especially good at the game in a competitive sense. I think they're completely different things.
I completely exactly what I was trying to. That's a good way to put it to words. Like Helmets On, they're probably one of the lowest ranked teams, maybe the lowest. I haven't ran the numbers recently, but their coordination and the way they communicate with each other, the way they make moves in such a unified way, is tough to deal with. Like you have to come in. We've talked about them a lot. I think their laning in the side lanes is pretty weak. I think that's one way you can try to beat them. But the thing is, once they hit the mid game, they're going to be strong. They're going to be grouping up a lot. In the late game, they have Ouch Kabibbles, who is a great insurance policy. He's a very good decision maker. Like I think IPA said, one of the most stable players. And like Chev said, high KDA, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, a lot of game losing mistakes. So there are windows where you can go up against them, but yeah, I don't think rank matters that much anymore, and I don't think, especially with the state of Dota matchmaking, the state of amateur Dota, where MMR is basically being handed out like candy, I think it matters the least that it ever has been. And like we were mentioning off camera, some of these teams that have been coming down from Champ, we got Mochi coming down from Champ with Han, who used to be Immortal. We got Golf Monday, me, Bob, Ozone, all did well in Champ before. These teams have been struggling week to week because there's a lot of good Dota players, a lot of good coordinated stacks, and it's tough. Like you can't coast, you have to lock in each week and really bring your A game, or anyone can lose to anyone, especially in a division that's as competitive as this one.
All right. I didn't know how much I was gonna say, but I gotta say some stuff. So, and I'm not even gonna say like anything specific, but in a season or a time of Dota where your guys' argument is everyone's inflated and MMR is free, they're handing it out
I
like
didn't
candy.
say that. I
Chev
do
did.
think a lot of
Chev
people
did.
are gaining MMR though.
Right.
It,
See what I'm saying?
It
I won't
looks
say-
different than it used to. It looks different than it used to. Let's put it that
That's
way.
what I'm saying.
I won't say the quality of the people who have gone up to say Immortal rank, but you can fill in the blanks.
I wanna hear IPA's finish here.
Yeah, what I'm saying is the take is MMR is free. They're handing it out like candy, right? So I feel like if that's your stance, you should raise your eyebrows when someone is deranking if MMR is being given out like candy. Because the good people who are losing when it's free, I think is something that like should raise an eyebrow. Just if the sheer fact is your take is that it's that easy.
Okay, I have a very good response to this. So, gaining MMR is a grind. It's not playing Dota 2 in a competitive sense. If you play the game how you would with your team, how you would with trying to coordinate, like when I'm playing mid in a pub and I'm kind of in this like competitive teamwork mindset and I make this play that if it has follow up is a really good play, I will get tilted, I'll throw the game, I'll die, and I'm like, why didn't my Venge swap me there? My Venge is supposed to swap me. Or like, why are we not going Roshan? I called Roshan 5 minutes ago. These things happen. And if you try to coordinate with people that are just not interested in coordinating, people who are all muted, people who don't speak the same language as you, like you will not win games. But today I decided I kind of want to win my pubs today. And you have to make that conscious decision. So I picked the best hero that I play, Ember Spirit. I played it 3 games in a row. I had like 750 GPM, like went 12-1. I all muted my team, blasted Spotify, and was just like locked in grinding. And those games are so free. They feel like I could probably climb as much as I wanted to if I picked, though I mean obviously not as much as I wanted to, but as much as like my skill cap is if I picked that hero every single game and I just grinded and I pretended I was playing like an MMO, fucking trying to get like 99 woodcutting on RuneScape or something. And if you want to do that, you can do that as much as you want in Dota, but it needs to be a conscious decision and a conscious grind. When those things don't happen and you try to just like play the game to be good at Dota or good at Dota in a competitive sense, you're not going to get MMR that way. They're just two different skills. They're two different like mindsets. So I think the people that are losing games still, even when it is quote unquote free MMR, are the people that are trying to like play Dota and coordinate and think about their teammates and think about the game critically, not the people that are just like spam grinding one hero, doing the same thing every single game over and over and over again until they reach whatever their peak is. If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And I will say, like, it's a straight up fact that some people are better in a competitive setting in Dota than they are in pubs.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a
100%
straight up fact. But I will say, like, your Helmets On example, if you ask them, they will straight up say that they just, like, fuck around in pubs and don't try hard. You know what I mean? And just like Chev said, like, if you play pubs not to win and that causes you to lose MMR, and then that makes you weighted differently in an amateur league where the only basis of weighting is your pubs, like there will always be a subjective discrepancy in terms of the weighting of individual players in a setup like amateur leagues. And I think my takeaway always is you just have to be okay that the little stars and badge that's associated with players in amateur leagues is not necessarily representative of what you expect their output to be in the league. And I'm always okay with that. But I do feel like once the admins open the door to manual adjustment, then it has to become a conversation because they created a rule based around the subjective analysis of an individual player's skill.
Right. I don't like when they adjust someone to a certain value. I do like when they say you can't play in this division, you have to go up. I think that is the most fair way to go about it. I will say this, and circling back to sort of strategy and mindset and how you govern a team, the people who have success, every season there's a few stacks where people are saying, oh, this team is unfair. How did this team get allowed? This player lost whatever amount of MMR, blah, blah, blah. The people who have success against these teams are the ones who don't concern themselves with this kind of rabble rousing. Just put their head down, focus, and put their best foot forward. I don't think Helmets On gives a crap about who is a rigged team versus who is not. I think they just like playing Dota together. They have a good attitude. They have put together good strategies from week to week from what I've seen. And they just do their best to coordinate despite being much lower on the proverbial calculator. I will say in the past, I've been on teams that people have complained about, and I have played against teams that people have complained about for being unfair. The times I've had success or people have had success against the team that I was on is the people who didn't concern themselves with this. I think people, from a mindset perspective, I think people let stuff like that get inside their head a bit, and the people who don't concern themselves with it or don't think about it or don't care about it genuinely in their heart of hearts are the people who do the best. I'll give you an example. A couple seasons ago, Brit, I'm a Dog. I think most of us were playing in that division at the time. Had legitimately maybe the most unfair team I've ever seen in the Conquer division in my life. But did they win the season? No. Mochi went up against them in the grand finals. They weren't bitching that Dosia was an unfair player. They weren't complaining that the team was rigged. They put their best foot forward. They stuck to their guns as far as drafting and their play style. And they did their best, and they almost lost, but they pulled it off. And I do think that people defeat themselves mentally at times, and I think it's important. I think it's just important to acknowledge. Rhino likes to use NBA analogies a lot, and I think they're useful for Dota in a number of different ways. But I think team building in 82L is a lot like team building in the NBA in certain ways. Like, you want to find those value contracts, right? You want to find the players who are valued low, who don't count towards your quote-unquote salary cap a lot, but who bring a lot of value to your team. If you look at the Boston Celtics roster from this past season, you know, you might say, well, that's not fair. Look at all these insane players they have on their team. They have basically like 5 or 6 all-star caliber players on their roster. But at the same time, in Dota, it's like they managed to find those value acquisitions. They built their team, and yeah, I don't know. I just think that's interesting. Not
I
sure
love
where I was
that
going
take.
with that one.
Oh, I love the take of like you need to be rank blind basically once you start playing the game, and I think like Helmets On is the perfect example of that. And like having played with them in a competitive setting is like 100% true.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so no, that was a great discussion. I think we can move on to our next topic, onto Riyadh and the different drafting styles of all the drafters here. So, Chev, you have been accused in the past of solely drafting off Dota Pro Tracker, and with Riyadh,
He has it on the second monitor, and if it's below 50% win rate, he will not pick the hero.
with Riyadh coming near, and in 2 days, and potentially the meta switching, we've seen Spin support. Spin on 5 is up to 55% win rate on Pro Tracker. Will this influence any
Really?
of your bans?
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I definitely have been accused of being a Dota 2 Pro Tracker suckbot. If I type in the word D on my browser, Dota 2 Pro Tracker comes up for sure.
Man, this Sven is actually crazy. What the hell?
Dude, the hero's good. The hero's really good.
Dude, I called this
Hero
shit
was
weeks
crazy
ago.
as fuck.
Ozone
Interesting.
carried me in a pub with Sven 5. It was insane.
Hero is so stupid.
Yeah.
Damage block is broken.
Yeah. Hopefully
Shields are stupid.
I think we should not release this until after playoffs.
That's actually smart.
Stealing this, but yeah.
That's promising.
I think like the way that I draft it usually is based on obviously meta things, and I think it's sometimes to my benefit, sometimes to my demise. Last week definitely to my demise, because when you draft off of Pro Tracker, when you draft off of like tournaments especially, you need to like you don't really know exactly what those players are thinking, because you're not a tier 1 pro player. You're an amateur player in like the somewhere between 4K and 6K bracket, and you just won't execute the same way. Like you don't have the same mindset. But there is obviously some merit to it. Like the 3 best mids right now in Pro Tracker are Shadow Fiend, Ember, and Tiny, and those are obviously like first pickable mid laners right now. So there's merit to it, there's not merit to it. I think sometimes when people try to completely copy pro meta and completely copy like tournament meta, you just fuck up and you end up throwing your drafts. But I think if you ignore it completely, you also just fuck up and you get like you're not paying attention, and all of a sudden like this Weaver pause 4 is a first pick hero in the pro meta. You didn't even know what that was, and then all of a sudden like the enemy team's picking Weaver pause 4, throwing these bugs on you at 2 minutes, and you just feed your lane. So I think you have to pay, like Dota's a game where you have to pay attention. IPA said earlier like something about being an AI learning experience. Like it is that. Like I think that they're really like you can't just ignore the things that are happening in the game, and the faster you adapt, the faster you're going to be able to succeed. And like the more successful teams adapt faster. That happens in pro meta, that happens in 82L. It's all the same thing, but you can't just like copy it completely. So I think to answer your other question, I think coming with Riyadh coming up 2 days away, I think the teams that are able to best implement that will be the most successful. And I do think that whenever a tier 1 tournament comes up, it totally impacts 82L.
So that's an interesting perspective because I would say IPA probably takes a different perspective where his team probably has their own meta. I think a team with Hexy definitely always has their own meta, core as well.
Dude,
So-
no, let me correct the record. These guys definitely pick meta at least early on. They just 9-pick SF against
They
Chev
get
and
SF,
then
yeah,
fucking walk
they
his
get
ass.
SF.
Yeah, but that's a Hexy thing. That's not like Hexy would do that anyway.
I think Hexy would do that. Yeah, Hexy would do that.
I
anytime.
don't think they would pick it that early in a non-SF patch, but I will let IPA defend or defend that point or correct me if I'm incorrect.
I guess I don't really know. It's my first season playing with him, but I think it is influenced by the meta because Hexy is playing the heroes that are strong. SF is strong. He's playing it a lot, so then we have confidence to pick it.
Okay.
You know,
Was that all really behind that? Like, so how much does a international tournament affect your impression on Dota though, and how
I
you
mean, like,
draft your team?
how much does a tier 1 tournament affect what I'm picking on a week-to-week
Exactly.
basis?
Correct.
Well, I don't know. I fell asleep while Chev was talking. He was just like, I just copy this website and you gotta know what to do. So I'm not really sure what he said.
He actually has 5 tabs
Incredible,
open
incredible.
for each role. He has 5 tabs during draft.
So this team is really interesting. When I created this team this season, I kind of told everyone that I wanted this to be the season of experimentation, where I was just going to try it, like basically Yoinky Sploinky, but actually good players.
Oh my god.
And not
So
like
that's crazy
not
as
just
fuck.
like random shit, like shit that's supposed to actually be good, right? And some of that, like we may have overcooked a few things sometimes. We scrimmed before the season started, which really helped me realize that it's really difficult to get 5 people to get on board with experimental shit if you don't win, because at the end of the day, winning is still king in multiplayer games online, and our psyches are just built that if you win, you're having more fun. And so we've probably moved as the season's gone on more towards this like pseudo meta comfort type of drafting where the facet patch, I think Rusty was talking about this before, like this particular patch is so extreme that it's probably tilted the scales of balance more than any Dota patch has in a long time. So if you're just picking like dog shit heroes that have trash facets and weren't buffed when every other hero in the game was buffed, like you're just setting yourself off on a poor foot, like at the beginning of the game. You're just like setting yourself up to lose.
Yeah, I would agree. I think when you really look at, I mean, this is the biggest patch we got in what, a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And
I think Universal patch was over 1 year ago. I would say
Probably
that was the last
hero
time.
balance patch. Yeah.
And that was also the last time where there was a lot of imbalance because Universal heroes were like extremely strong.
yeah.
Oh, and to answer your original question, this is like the presidential debates where you ask me a question, I just talk about random shit and don't actually answer it. Is like, yes, tier 1 Dota affects my drafting to an extent because if nothing else, my players will be watching it and they'll say like, hey, I really like this hero because they're seeing it being played in pro play. And like like Chev said, what your players want to play should always be a consideration in every amateur Dota team, in my opinion. I don't think you can be a draft dictator and succeed.
Yeah, I don't actually agree with that. Yeah, that's. And I mean, I would argue. Have you ever been able to truly be a draft dictator and succeed?
Well,
go ahead, Connor.
It was a lower division than this one, but I mean, didn't PSGS basically did that? They literally had contracts and fucking draft spreadsheets and told people not to talk during draft unless they asked them a specific question. They ended up winning that season. So I would say a perspective like that can work in amateur Dota.
I think you need balance for sure.
I think you have to be really thorough. Like if you do that, you have to put in probably hours of work and like really have it planned out. And have the trust of your team. Otherwise, it's gonna fall apart.
Yeah, I agree. So this season is the first season that my team has been like letting me draft almost entirely on my own. and I like it a lot less than I thought I would. Like, because you can draft the most ideal draft possible, but if your players aren't like on board with it or like know what their heroes are supposed to do or know how you're supposed to take team fights, then it's not going to work. And then you might as well just give them like an easy to execute comfort draft. I think I learned that last week against SC, picking this Phoenix hero, which is like universally agreed upon as broken in the pro meta. But then we didn't really play around the Phoenix the way you're supposed to. Phoenix needs a fuck ton of farm to be successful. It's way better in pubs than it is in pro. So it's just, I think you just need like a lot of buy-in if you're going to draft like that. But I think in amateur competitive scene, I don't think it works as well as like I would have thought before this season, or like really just drafting for the last 3 seasons now.
Yeah, I would agree. And we're edging on an hour here. So I guess we'll get to our last topic. Looking at the standings of the league right now, and where we are, going into the final week of Conqueror season. In the playoffs, we have Helmets On in first place with 9 wins, Grin Scythe in second place with 8, Simple Chemistry with 8. In fourth, after Simple Chemistry, we have Mochi with 7, Cooked Up Kobolds with 7, 6, Pot of Greed, 7 wins, and then in the 7th seed, 10 Toes tied with Conquerors in the Sun, Golf Monday with 6 wins, and then Savage at 10th with 5, and then 2 teams under that with lower wins. So
We call those bye weeks, folks, unless you're Rhino's team. Then they got hands.
all right. Very true. Now, who do you guys have winning it all? I think that's probably where we're going to end up in the pod. Looking at right now, going into week 7, who do you guys have winning it all?
I mean,
who has enough? Go ahead, Chef.
Can we do that question without picking our own teams? Because I think like all 4 of us are just going to say our own teams.
Well, I mean, you can say your own teams, but say why.
No,
Say your own team. Actually, don't say your own team. Let's cut that out. Say another team that you think has a good chance to win. Obviously, we all want and think our own teams are going to make it.
So I'll start, and I'll say I believe in my team on a week-to-week basis. Assuming we make the playoffs, which is not a given, but I will assume, for the sake of this, that we do. I do believe in us on a week-to-week. It feels like a lot of our series, we've won a lot of teams, and I feel like every time we've won, I have thought after, like, damn, what we messed up in that one game was correctable. I feel like if there was a game 3, we would win. That being said, I won't pick my own team just because, A, I think we're a bit too inconsistent, especially if we're going to be lower bracket, and B, that's no fun. I'll say Coked Up Kobolds has been the strongest team that we played, and I think when they are locked in for playoffs, they present the most number of challenges and most unique challenges. And I think they have very strong rotations on the map, which can be difficult to deal with. So I will go with the Coked Up Kobolds, because I trust that the map man will have good strategies for his team as well.
Whoa. Did you watch their past week? Because the only rotating Chef did was between jungle camps for like 60 minutes.
Oh my god.
It's true.
I saw Tiny mid and Void Spirit carry. That's all I need to know that was cooked.
Did you check my items? Because I was informed the week after that
I didn't actually see that.
No boots?
I didn't buy boots, and I didn't even realize that I didn't buy boots.
Yeah,
That's
bro.
how-
What good a
that's
pro
how
tracker
locked
build
in
was
I
that? Please.
Yeah. No, it was an
Well, I
embarrassment.
think like if you look back at the past 2 seasons, which Chev loves telling everyone that he won.
Did I?
The past couple seasons with Los Animales de Golf, sponsored by yours truly, by the way. Still haven't seen my sponsors cut. And what was the name of the team with Jamie and Go Play Offlane?
Yeah.
These were not teams in the regular season who were consistent. And in the case of Go Play Offlane, they actually lost their upper bracket match
Mhm.
and had to do a lower bracket run. So I just think when the playoffs come out that these players will be locked in and ready. I've said before I respect Teju a lot. Safe laner, Thug Potato always has a unique challenge playing against him because he plays some unconventional heroes that can really break the game open. And I said before I was very impressed with Lorenzo's rotations when we played them as well. So I think they have a good formula as far as being able to snowball games. So I will go with them. I think Dota Pro Tracker drafting is a strong thing to do if you have buy-in. I feel I've had a similar approach where drafts are pretty meta and team is generally pretty on board with that. So I think it works when it works. So I'll go Coked Up Kobolds.
Okay.
It's actually a good answer. I mean, I might be flaming Shep because I had to watch his VOD and I got bored as fuck watching that VOD. I was like, please look somewhere else. But I think that's actually a good answer because I think their team is. I think roster-wise, I told Shep how strong I thought his team was at the beginning of the season because I think very highly of Thug Potato. Like when you talk about value players, like on an NBA contract, like Thug Potato is that for me. Like coming in as a mid-ancient player, I think is incredibly value for that particular player this season.
Yeah, mid ancients are like horrible these days, and
Yeah.
Thug is like quite good. So
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
And so I think looking at the season, there are two teams who, in my opinion, will mostly not beat themselves, and they have to be beaten by another team. And I think that's Helmets On and Grinscythe. And I think that's the reason that they're top of the table right now. Is I think they are. One of you said, like maybe Connor, you said formulaic in nature. We talked about Helmets On playstyle as a way of that, and I think in a future episode we'll kind of break down those two teams playing each other. But I think those are two teams that will probably be upper bracket, and I think if you don't know how to beat those teams, they will beat you. That being said, I think teams like Cuck are capable of beating them in a 3-game series. My pick for team that is not my own to win would be Mochi, because I think Mochi has the combination of talent and resiliency with like that experience, Connor talked about earlier of being there and doing it. And I think they have the individual skill to consistently beat teams in the playoffs.
I will say after playing against them and watching their games, I would be really surprised if Mochi won the season actually. I think they're like not one of the best teams.
Wow. I mean, I've actually watched any of their games, but that's definitely a hot take. Any particular reason?
I think their mid to late game decision making is more questionable than a lot of other teams.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll expand on that another episode. Chev, do you want to give your team that you think's gonna win that's not yours and why?
Yeah. Well, I want to touch on one thing quick. I think IPA saying Scythe is a team to beat. I kind of disagree with that after playing them. I mean, we've played pretty much all of like the best teams now so far. I think that just like hot take, maybe. I don't even think Scythe will make it the top 4. I think they felt like one of the easier teams to play against, even though we won them. We didn't have Teju, and it felt it felt kind of like simple, I guess, to play against their style, and I think they'll get crushed when playoff mode turns on. There are just players that play so differently in playoffs. You're one of them. I think I'm one of them. I think like playoff just comes out and the pressure goes on, and some people just start performing like their lives on the line. So yeah, I don't think Scythe's one of those teams.
Oh, hold up. No, I think you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm not
Sure.
saying like they're a team to beat as in like they are undoubtedly one of the best, which is why I didn't pick them to win, right? I'm saying they play a style of Dota similar to Helmets On that is formulaic in nature and is constantly is consistently good. And if you don't know how to beat it, I think you will lose to it. And I think that's what happened in the regular season. I think playoffs gives an opportunity for those teams to get beat more easily because they're a 3-game series than it does in a 2-game series in the regular season with less prep.
That's fair. I think that's a fair point. Like prepping happens a lot more in playoffs. than in regular season. So, yeah. Okay, that's what you're saying now.
Of the current top 4, I would take any team over Grinscythe at the moment.
I'd agree.
And Mochi as well.
I'm gonna say, I actually agree with IPA that obviously besides like picking our own teams, I think Mochi might be my pick. I think that team is notorious for being in grand finals. I think that Han is an amazing player, and has more impact than probably any other mid. And I think that those things matter a lot more in playoffs than they do in the regular season. I think like impact early has a different connotation than it does in like regular season in playoffs. So yeah, I think I'm gonna take Mochi. I think they have the experience. I think they have the talent. That's the team that I think I could see making even like a lower bracket run if they are in lower bracket. So Mochi.
Okay, yeah. I'm honestly gonna go with. That's a hard question, honestly. I think that there's some teams that are definitely have all the key pieces you need to win. I would say the team that adapts the most to whatever's next is probably going to win. It's playoffs are long, right? And they're really long if you're in the upper bracket. So I think a team that one needs the resiliency to stay together, to keep playing Dota through a patch to whatever happens, and the adaptability to move to whatever, beat of the drum, the patch goes to, right? I'm taking SC. I think after playing a season of IPA, he has everything he needs to win. And now he has a team all behind, his mindset of Dota, right? That's the only thing we want as a captain, right? Is 4 players to buy the fuck in when it matters, right? On what we need them to buy the fuck in on, right? So I feel like IPA has that. He has 2 win conditions, as he said, and I think this conversation with IPA has definitely convinced me SC has it all, right? And if it's not SC, I definitely think it's Helmeton. But I think SC has what it takes to beat Helmeton. I think that'd be a hell of a best of 5, So those would be my 2 top teams. I think Hexy has finally put it together. And I think, Chev loves to say, IPA was the captain to unleash Hexy. I would disagree because I played with Hexy when we were in Minnesota Land and we had a hell of a good team then. But IPA has unlocked that same potential in Hexy, where he knows how to play around him. They know how to move around him. They not only that, they know how to trust him. And that was the biggest thing with Hexy teams. You win his lane, but you trust him to win the game, right? And you need to trust Hexy calls. I agree 100% with what IPA was saying. Hexy is a super smart fucking player. And he gets way too much slack for his on-the-court, actions. His off-the-court actions, semi-sus, but we're not here for that. You know what I mean? On the court, the man's a fucking stud. And unleashing him and trusting him is invaluable to seeing SC grow. So I'll take SC in the best of 5 against almost any of these teams. So that'd be my answer.
I definitely think in terms of Dota gameplay, they are very strong.
Yeah.
They were probably my second pick.
For the record, I think I said unlock, but I'm liking unleash better now, so maybe I'll switch to unleash.
Unleash sounds more hexy.
Well,
Sounds more hexy. Unlock sounds like...
Before you unleash someone, they have to be on a leash, right? So
I will say historically, just from historically speaking, I have no insight to I have limited insight into the world of Simple Chemistry's Dota ecosystem. I do worry about the mental state of said player. However, I think the other 4 are mental rocks. And I think winning heals anything. And if you're winning, you're almost certainly not going to have a bad attitude. So I do think they are well positioned to make a deep run.
I like that. Winning heals all. That's good.
Yeah, for what it's worth.
Winning means never having to say, I'm sorry.
If you guys haven't heard it in a VOD, like the one thing that Hexy has repeated throughout the season is he said, I just love the way that my supports want to play around me. And so, yes, I have played. I actually looked it up. I've played every position multiple times this season in regular season. I played at least every role twice.
Really?
Every role at least
Oh,
twice.
2?
Yep, I played mid twice, played
Wow.
hard support twice, 4 twice, offlane twice, carry multiple times.
I remember the
It's kinda fun.
disruptor.
Please don't.
If my team
Uh,
tried to do this, we would lose in a record like 8-minute loss if I was playing
Yeah.
hard carry.
But in general, like, I think there are a lot of times where, because I'm active in Discord or what have you, I will get credit for the captaining of a team. But I think a lot of it is about the relationships that you build between the other players on the team. And like that, like Hexy's response of, I love the way my supports play around me, is the perfect example of creating like a team that's going to work, but you're not actually doing it. You're just setting them up to succeed.
That's cool.
Well, I will say on the flip side, I said winning heals all. On the flip side, losing can unearth demons. I have been on teams that have fallen apart mid-series due to some unfortunate actions that
Yeah.
happened and people's mental state withering, or perhaps their focus lagging due to upset feelings or
Would you say hubris?
nervousness or emotions. I mean, maybe in some cases, not always. But I think when the harmony is disrupted, it does affect Dota play. It's like I was talking about earlier, like with people who get so caught up in, oh, this player's unfair, oh, this team is rigged, blah blah blah. Same thing, like if you have a disruption in the middle of your series, like say 2 members on a team like have an argument, it takes a special group of players normally need to have a pre-established relationship to like rally from something like that. And even I've been on teams where I think the Dota gameplay has suffered because you can just tell, even if they're not outwardly tilting or saying negative stuff, you can just tell that someone is not happy. It's just the energy they're putting off, like in Discord or what have you. And I think that hurts. That can be a killer.
Yeah.
So
I think the second.
I'm
you
not
take-
even saying this in. I'm not even saying this specifically about IPA's team or anything like that. I just mean in general, since we're kind of talking about Dota strategy and captainship and everything. Like making sure you all have trust and respect for one another, I think is really important. Because when it comes down to game 3 and there might still be sore feelings or animosity or nervousness from the previous game, like chips are down, it can be the hole that sinks your ship, you know?
Yeah, I think like as soon as you take your focus off of the game, you perform like I wouldn't even say half as good as you do before. I think that's one thing that's universally true in pubs, universally true in tier 1 pro games and amateur games. I think that like the one universal truth is that the second your focus drifts, you lose basically. The more focused team will generally win, skill aside.
I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, I mean, I've had Dota games in the past, playoff games or important regular season games where I felt someone either wasn't cooperating with what we needed to do at that time, or maybe they made a risky play that didn't work out and it really hurt us. And I have felt my focus drift because it's hard to stay eyes on the prize when something like that happens.
yeah,
And I
emotions
think
get involved for sure.
the most mentally resilient teams often. I mean, that's why I think Mochi has had a ton of success, right? Like
I was gonna
circling
say
back,
that,
or
yeah.
Helmet's on too. They're all friends. They have great relationships. They have great respect for one another. I guarantee behind the scenes, other than like joking around, there isn't a lot of blame or sore feelings or even internal blaming that happens. Like they're just ride or die with one another. And I think that is like absolutely huge, especially as we go into the best of 3s of the playoffs. Like being able, like even if you get rattled, lose a game, having that trust and respect for one another really does matter.
Yeah. I know we're closing up on an hour probably, but I want to bring up one cool thing for Rhino. So Rhino, last season you and IPA actually got on 7 Dark 40, as I was calling you guys. I don't remember what your actual team name was, but you guys got knocked out of the playoffs by Helmets On. That was your last match last season, was Helmets On, and now they're also the team standing between you and playoffs. So I think that's a really cool storyline going into week 7.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm a petty guy. Like, yeah, I love the storylines. I love the drama. I love the beef. I love the dude. I live for this shit. You know what I mean?
Get him,
When I'm
Rhino.
at work, I fucking think about this shit. You know, so and in a lot of ways, that I took that series a lot harder than I took losses. You know what I mean? I enjoyed playing with like championship losses, right? Like I took like that MD12 loss was not that big a deal to me because firstly, I loved everyone on that team and we played our fucking asses off and every game was amazing, right? So, but that Helmets On loss with 7 Dark 30, that shit hurt, bro. It really hurt. Like, so no, I'm reminding the guys, we're pulling up stat lines, of old seasons. Sun has deep history against Helmets On, right? So it's not only me, and we're gonna need every bit of that passion, every bit of that to beat these guys. So yeah, no, but it's definitely on our minds. We haven't forgotten, elephant's memory, as they would say, So yeah, no, we haven't forgotten, and I want this. I'm in no way am I dodging this, and I didn't want Grin Fury last week, to be honest. It was nice, but I didn't want it. I would love to prove ourselves. Going into this last week, it'd been really nice to get 2 really good games against, say, Mochi, say SC, say Cuck, say any of those teams. It would have been nice to get a little at least a 2-game series going into this. So we haven't had that. We're going on a break going into this. All those things are on our mind. But we're going to come with our best Dota, whether that's a 1-1, whether that's a 2-0 in our favor or against us. It's going to be the best Tentos you've seen all season. So, yeah, no, I'm excited.
I really envy the 80-12 players who can get knocked out and just keep moving along. Like when I get eliminated, it really does sting, man. It stings for a couple days. I mean, maybe I'm just competitive. Maybe that's even like taking it to an unhealthy level, but it fucking sucks to like put a lot of yourself into this for months, like do a lot of work, try your hardest at something and just get beat. Like it feels bad. Like I've had some sleepless nights after some tough losses. Like if you're one of the people who can get knocked out and move on, just know that I am jealous of that mental state and wish I could turn the page that easily.
Yep. Welcome to the club, Connor.
Connor,
Cool
this
stuff.
sounds
Been
really
that way
hard.
for a long time.
That sounds really hard.
What?
So that sounds really hard.
It is. I mean, you've been knocked out before, Chev. I mean, maybe it's been a couple of seasons, but
Chef's lost the final.
I'm sure it didn't feel good.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think I take losses in the game differently a little bit. I think I take once it's over, I think like it all just kind of like dissipates for me. MD12, even the season with after I lost that challenger season with Rhino, I was like in Savage's Discord back when we were still close. Before all the nonsense, I was like on video cam with Gav and whoever else was there. We were like joking around, laughing about like Rhino's last pick Coddle for the game 3 loss or game 4 loss, and I think that just like all kind of like gets to go away for me after a loss. But yeah, it's I know it's a tough feeling. I think it's there for me before the season ends, and once it ends, it kind of all just like
Definitely depends. I think if you get smoked, it's easy to turn the page, but like when you lose a painful like game 3, like a long game, or like make some crucial error that hurts your team, like that sticks with you for a bit. At least for me.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you, Connor. I'm very envious of you, Chev. And the same thing happened when we won our championship against Gambit Scion, like the Pot of Pride, in that like huge best of 5 where we did the reverse sweep. They immediately jumped in our Discord, and we were all 10 of us were just chatting as soon as Game 5 ended. And I remember thinking to myself, like, if we had lost that shit, I would have been just fucking pacing the house for the next 6 hours. Like, no choice. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Rough. I love that you can do that, Chef. Good for you, bro.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
depends like if how you lose. I don't know. For me, I feel the opposite. Like when Rhino and I lost that MD2L Grand Finals, I don't want to like go too long into this, but at the end of the game, it was literally just me and Rhino alive. He's playing Snapfire. He's hexing like 5 heroes. It's a 2v5 defending our throne at like 65 minutes with some of the most intense Dota I've ever played. Like people are sitting right next to me and they're just like, this has to happen. It has to happen. Like crazy comeback Dota, like back and forth, and losing those kind of games just it feels good, honestly. It just like wow, like I still have something to like strive for. That wasn't an easy game. That was really hard. We played our heart out, and I think that I just try to like take the positives with it. So yeah.
Wow. I think you just built diff in that if that's the case.
Maybe.
Yeah, I definitely take this shit hard, but I definitely see Chef's perspective as well. And I mean, unless anyone else had any other topics to dissect, we are at an hour 15, hour 20 exactly. If we want to cut it off here, I'll obviously trim this part. But did anyone else have any other topics they wanted to dissect while we're here? And if not, we can go to end part 1 right now.
Shout out
no
to Golf
topics.
Monday.
Yeah, I have no time, so I have a fun question for the three of you. Who do you think is the most positive, like, mental person throughout the game that I've ever played with in 82L?
Like that you've played with or me personally?
I've played with, me personally.
So you're saying who is the teammate I've had that's the most PMA? Me, Rusty
Yeah.
Shackelford, who
Or
have
the
I
worst.
played with? Okay.
Yeah, you can answer that.
Alright, I'll think. If someone else has an answer, I gotta think about this.
Who is the mental rock that is untiltable that you guys have played with?
Juke.
Juke? What about you, Chev?
Honestly, it might have to be Teju. I think it's definitely Teju. The last 2 seasons, I mean, even in pubs, like anytime playing with Teju, he just doesn't really care that much about the outcome. And I think he's good at the game for not playing it too much. I think that's a key to it, is he's not burnt out by it. He doesn't pour too much into it. So like playing with him has been like really nice the last 2 seasons. I'd play with him every single season if I could. Because he's just like super positive. Even when someone else is tilting, he just like makes fun of them. Last season, the Bernie was just like tilted out of his mind in some games, like 0 and 7 offlane Kunkka at 5 minutes. And
Yeah,
just
it's
walk up to
definitely
him.
not any one of my
Oh.
current teammates.
It's hilarious. But yeah, he'd like walk up to Bernie and like steal his farm intentionally, like ult a creep camp that he's farming, like just like to make fun of him, and then we win the game because of it. So yeah, Teju is like a mental godsend for sure.
Connor.
My answer would be, I'd have to go with Juicy Panda. I think I've never nothing negative ever bleeds into the comms from him. Like even some people that I've played with who I don't really know if they're tilting necessarily, or like I don't feel like they're being negative, but there's some people I've played with in the past who, if a game is tough, you can kind of tell from either the tone of their voice or what they're saying that they kind of feel internally that it's over. And that kind of stinks. I mean, any negativity stinks, but like those are people who I would say are PMA and don't tilt. But for me, Juicy Panda, I never get anything negative from him. I feel he's really legitimately untiltable and always gives 100%. And I think he's got to be up there for me, like best teammates I've had for sure.
All right, cool. For me, it's and I know you guys have played with this person. It's definitely Core.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
and like
definitely.
because you know, the pinnacle of Core being tilted is when you hear a good freak, and you know he's upset with himself over something, and that's as bad as it gets ever. And it's like, I remember the first time I played with him, like I'm probably my own hardest critic. And if I get down on myself because I'm not having a good game, he was always like, "Don't worry, like we can do this, do that, like it'll be fine." Like absolute rock.
Yeah, special
I
shout out to
hope
the
that-
players that are able to like not just not tilt themselves at hard moments, but like help other people when they're tilted. Players like Jukester, Core, and Teju for sure.
I would like to hope people say this about me when asked. In the past, I think I've been on teams with some very mentally not stable people, and I've been the rock. I think this season I have been not the best teammate. So I will say thank you, Golf Monday, for bearing with me. I'm sorry if I got mad at you guys a couple times and was not the best ass man I could be. I apologize to Bob, Ozone, Bernie, Storm. Thank you for bearing with me as I yell at you about hubris.
The beer of
Man,
the evening was Victory's Juicy Monkey. If you guys have ever had it,
What
it's
the hell?
delicious. I highly recommend it. It's 9.5%, so it's basically
Oh,
wine.
yeah.